Gilmour, and you're listening to ShowbizMonkeys.com.
Around this town, I'm alright. Around this town, I'm alright. I mean, no consequence when you playing with the fire.
Courtney Gilmour.
Yes.
You're having the time of your life right now.
I am. I'm actually having the time of my life.
It's
right now.
Like, not specifically with me, but it's a good time for you.
With you too, but yes. Yeah, I'm having a good week, a good time, yeah. Comedy, everything's going pretty swimmingly.
For those that don't know, you just won the Just for Laughs Homegrown competition.
Yeah. Two women co-won together, which is amazing.
What was it like to co-win with someone? Did they announce TJ first, or
they announced me first, and they did prep us for saying there is a co-win, it's a tie, so it wasn't
like Moonlight, La La Land.
Yeah, no, it wasn't like a scandalous thing. So we had some prep time, but it was cool. I didn't even have any idea who the second person was gonna be, but I was happy that it was DJ, and then it was a woman because it was the first time in its 19-year history that a woman has won. So I thought that it was cool that two women won for the first time. So yeah, it was pretty sweet.
How has, and I know it hasn't been that long, but have you noticed a drastic change in your career because of it?
I don't know if I would use the word drastic, but then also maybe I would, just in terms of things have definitely picked up. I thought that when I got home from Montreal, I'd be able to have some downtime and just sort of recuperate. Because that was in July, right? And it's September, and it feels like the space between the months has been 30 seconds. Everything has just been kind of picking up steam. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I have more shows and more potential prospects, and I'm working on some other projects, but things have been good. Yeah, I feel a lot busier and a lot more I actually am a comedian. I can't pretend that I was going to say no backing out now. I guess I could back out whenever I want, and I don't want to, but it's this is legitimate now, and I can, confidently do shows and say that I'm a comedian,
Was this the moment, this year?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know, I don't know that I wouldn't, encourage people to, seek a specific milestone to, define them or to, tell them that they're a comedian, because, you're doing jokes and you're out there, you're doing what you love. But yeah, I think there's probably a time in everyone's life where they just realize that they're almost looking in on their own life and being wow, this is actually pretty cool. And that the Homegrown show was also the biggest show I've ever done. Mm-hmm. So that was a really cool feeling. And yeah, there was a little sense of officialness to it, I guess. So yeah.
But you've also been working pretty steady.
Sure, yeah.
The other thing that happened, was it even the same day that you won the pitch competition with Christoph?
You know what, that was the same day. So the pitch wasn't that day. The pitch was the day before, but the when they announced the win, that was that day, and it was literally, Christoph and I pitched our animated series to CBC Originals, and they were announcing it that day, but I was so frazzled with Homegrown, I was like, okay, pitch is over, now I'm just going to be focusing on this set for tonight. And then after I won Homegrown, Christoph came up to me and was like, guess what, we won the pitch too. And I was like, wow, this is too much for me to handle right now. But that was a really cool moment. It was cool. He always says that was really cool for him, that he got that news right as I was, coming off stage. So yeah, that was super exciting. Yeah.
He got it right.
He got it. Yeah, he got the news right as he was at the show. So he got to tell me immediately after, and I was being whisked away to another show later that night. So I had to just kind of come out the back door, and my family was there, my friends, and my agent Ian was there, and I was like, oh, this is so cool. And then I just had to anyway, see you later, guys. I'm gonna go in this van and go across town. But yeah, Christoph caught me after the show and was able to tell me that. So that was a nice little extra boost.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Were you just adrenaline junkie through the rest of the night?
Totally. And what's so funny about that was that I really enjoyed my Homegrown set, but I was pretty nervous, and that's a lot of nerves and energy and adrenaline for that show. But I think after that I was a little bit relieved that it was over, and then I had to rush to another show at the Comedy Nest, and I felt like that set at the Comedy Nest was like my best set of the fest. Not even the Homegrown, like and no one was filming it or no one was like recording it and no one I knew was even there. But I think, because there's so much like hype and like, oh, this is just for laughs and you're in this 800-seat theater. And then I was just like, now I'm just going to some club on a Saturday night and I'm just talking to some drunk strangers. And there was like a really cool sense of familiarity that's like humbling, but also like I could breathe again and like just do stupid jokes and it didn't have to be polished or anything. So that was like a really good set later that night after Homegrown, which is kind of weird. But
so was it like more relaxed?
Yeah, it was more relaxed.
Like,
plus I was still high on like the news of like having won both things. So yeah, there was like maybe there was a sense of relaxation in the fact that like I don't give a shit if I bomb right now. Like I don't care. Like I just, this is a really good day anyways. So that probably helped me.
Because I've known you a little bit as a person, I like the idea of you walking out on stage and just being like, hello, I don't need you anymore. Just so you know up front.
I would encourage that, that mindset in the sense, not that you're literally saying that, but it does give you a nice boost of confidence. But I think that a set would have gone differently if I had actually been like, just so you know, I don't need any of you. I just came from Homegrown. No, but it was, it just felt more relaxed, and I was able to just like be in my element telling jokes in a basement again.
I remember some of the first comedy advice I ever got was from John Wing.
Yeah.
And he said, first you're going to write jokes.
Yeah.
Then you're going to write good jokes.
Yeah.
Then you're going to write good jokes for you. And then you know you're a comic when you reach the fourth step, which is you bomb on stage doing a professional gig and you're driving home in your car just being like, fuck them, I know I was funny. And like, then you're a comic.
Yeah. That must be a great feeling to be able to like still feel insistent that you love your set and you love your jokes. Because I think right now, like a lot of us are like, we still have bombs that like make us forget all the successes. You're like, nope, this one show tonight on a Wednesday in the bottom of some pub, this is what I am. This horrible set for 5 minutes for some reason defines my career, and now I'm not anything. It's so weird that we do that.
It keeps you humble.
Yeah.
I'm just going to pause for a second. Like, anyone that doesn't follow you on Twitter or Facebook,
Follow me. I'll follow you back.
Your status updates are on fire.
Thanks.
To the point that I've begun deliberately choosing which ones I like back because I don't want you to lose the hustle.
Oh, that's so nice. Thank you. I really enjoy the internet. The internet is like my playground. I really like posting stupid stuff.
It is like actually, no, I shouldn't say it's the safety net because sometimes you get wacky people just voicing their opinions who don't know.
Do you get a lot of that? Like wacky? I don't know if I get wacky people for sure, but I think I'm lucky that I don't get a lot of trolling or like negativity. I just get like weird older people, either from my family or like someone else's family who happened to add me after a show, and they like contribute to the thread in a way that has no relevance or significance, and that happens a lot. So, do you get a lot of like negative feedback?
I get mistaken for different Andrew Lizottes.
Oh no! Oh really?
And so I guess there's one in Los Angeles that has a YouTube video vlog that's just him covering classic Disney songs.
Oh wow!
So I'll get like, I love when you sing "Colors of the Wind." And I'm just like, thank you.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I did one time, I guess.
Yeah.
That's funny.
You're asking me questions.
I know, sorry, I'm becoming the interviewer. Yeah.
No. A, you're a good person. But B, you run your own podcast.
Yes.
Too.
Yeah.
So this has got to be instinct for you.
Yeah, I think it is. It kicks in. Just wanting to maintain the balance of a conversation. You say something, I say something. I ask you something, you ask me something. Yeah. I don't know when to quit. It's infiltrating social, just everyday conversation.
Yeah.
We're just always podcasting.
What's your podcast?
My podcast. So my podcast is called So Help Me Pod, and I co-produce and host it with Dan Curtis Thompson, another comedian.
Okay.
And it's about religion, and we interview comedians about religion and faith and spirituality and whether or not they're currently practicing or ever did or are not at all. We just kind of let them, we just talk about it, what their experiences are.
How'd that come about? Why were you like, why religion?
Yeah, because, well, I was raised very religious, like very super conservative Christian, and
Me too.
really, oh, we have so much to talk about. I feel,
Yeah.
so I was pretty heavy into it, even into like my early 20s. So it was still like a lot of people we talked to, they sort of like departed from it when they were younger, but it was like heavily influenced my whole life up until my early adulthood. And then I sort of went my own way. And when I started comedy and I met Dan, and he was also raised Christian as well, and we always had conversations where we would talk about that. Somehow it would always lead back to like our like just certain weird or funny experiences, and like how it relates to like our comedy and shapes our personalities. And we realized there's a lot of comics in the scene who have very interesting backgrounds and very interesting perspectives on religion. So we're like, we need to talk about this because we could talk for hours. So now we do on this podcast.
Really? Because
Yeah.
I just assume that it leads itself to pragmatic atheism. Like, I clam up about it.
Oh, do you?
most of the
That's
time.
the thing is, like, it's very interesting because certain people are, like, very open about it, and certain people are like, no, I have certain things that, like, sensitive subjects I don't really want to get into, which is completely fine. But yeah, you get a whole spectrum of responses to how people discuss the dialogue and discourse of religion. It's very interesting to me. I'm always interested. I love meeting former Christians, especially just because it shaped my life in so many ways, and I don't often get a chance to meet other people who are like, oh yeah, that used to be my life too. I did a comedy like road trip a few months back, and I was in a car with a bunch of comics who I didn't know like what their backgrounds were, but I think I instantly assumed that everyone is atheist. I don't know why. And they started singing Christian camp songs that I knew from church because they had been to Christian camp, and I didn't know that, and I like lit up. I was like, what? How do you know that song? And the one girl was like, oh, like my parents like sent me to a Bible camp when I was like 10, and I remember this song, and I just like, it set me off. I was like, that's so crazy. And then, sparks conversation.
Can I throw one down
Yes.
and see if you know what I'm talking about?
Oh my God, yes,
no one
please.
Life without God is like a donut.
The donut! The donut hole!
You're
the donut man!
The only other person I've met who knows that
I
song.
know that song. Do you know that? What do you know that song from? Do you know the Donut Man, the Donut Hole?
Like
it was like a video series of like a guy.
Yes.
Yeah. And then he like runs a donut shop or something. And and so everything is like weirdly donut but God related. Yeah.
No, it's great. For those that don't know, which I'm assuming is everyone else listening, the end of that sentence is because there's a hole in the middle of your heart.
Life without God's love is like a donut, like a donut, like a donut. Life without God's love is like a donut. There's a hole in the middle of your heart.
I didn't remember the tune. I just remembered.
Say that to yourself out loud, though, and how messed up that sounds. There's a hole in the middle of your heart.
Very existential, like.
And children just sing it happily. They don't know what they're saying. Oh man, that guy, he's like he's like an adult and like children's entertainer. And he did like a video series of like kids videos, like sing along type stuff. That guy did a concert at my church because he like tours around and like goes and does those performances for churches. Apparently he's a huge dick.
Really?
Yeah, I heard some diva
like
experiences.
A diva
Can you imagine being a diva when you're like a donut man Christian entertainer?
Yeah.
Like you have the audacity to be like, can it be cooler in here? Like, I can't believe it. That's so nuts to me. I love that moment that we just shared of the donut. No one, I would never be able to just casually bring that up and have anyone know.
I'm just like, I just want to get into all this.
I know.
But then,
well, now I have to have you on the
co-opting
podcast.
Your podcast?
No, I think you should be on the podcast and talk about that because I feel like there's probably a lot more relatable experiences for sure.
And I got raised, everyone always thought I was Jewish, and I grew up in a Jewish neighborhood.
Right.
I absorbed a lot of that.
Sure.
And, I ended up taking a lot of religious studies in university just so I could talk to my dad about it, and we could have a measured conversation about religion.
Okay, was because he was religious?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
My dad was the one who doubled down on it. My mom's side of the family was Protestant, and he was Catholic.
Oh, he was Catholic. Okay, I see.
So there's a lot going on.
There's a lot,
too.
yeah. Wow, that's so interesting.
My shoulders physically dropped. I
really?
relaxed. I want to bring up one other one, and then I swear to everyone else listening, we will
please go for it.
Do you remember this animated video series? McGee and Me was good.
Okay, it wasn't that.
3 time-traveling archaeologists going back and visiting Bible stories.
Yeah. It was called like something like Great Adventures in Time or something like that. Yeah, and there was like a blonde cartoon lady, and then there was this other kid with like a backwards hat.
Yeah. Red hair.
Yes, I remember that.
Was he a Christian too, the kid in the little hat, or were the 2 other people trying to convert him every episode?
I don't know. I don't remember, but I definitely watched that for sure. Yeah, they would go back in time and like. Were they going to Bible stories?
They went
they went back into Bible times and like observed like what was happening.
Well, and here's the thing, is I would always think like, well, how does that kid not believe? Because he went, but then if there's also time travel and they stumbled onto some like ancient portal, like there's so many more religious connotations to that this show is not addressing.
No, not touching at all. They don't even like acknowledge that what they're doing. Like it'd be like if it was like Back to the Future, but they were just like, oh, now we're just in your mom's high school. Like they don't acknowledge the time travel aspect of it at all. It's just like we just have to accept it.
And no other Bible person ever was just like questioned.
No, they're like, where are you from? Like, what is on your head or anything like that? No, they were just like largely accepted into the time.
Right? I would watch that and have anxiety as a kid. I'm just like, okay, but then there's but then did God know about, if God knows about the time thing, then who are these people? Did they become someone else in the timeline? And I was getting worried about like, no, you're going to screw up the timeline.
The continuum. That's so fun. That's really fascinating that was your concern.
Like, no, that's not the point of
that's
these
not the
Bible
point of
stories.
It. Yeah.
And then I couldn't tell which parts of the stories were like sci-fi. Like, it's weird to give kids a religious sci-fi entry point and be like, this is fake, but this part is real.
That is really funny. That is really funny and true and interesting, because I don't think many people consider that angle. They're like, here's like this cool, hip, like sci-fi thing to like help you understand this, but that's real though. Mm-hmm. But the sci-fi thing, just ignore that part. We just made that up. But the thing that it's about is the real.
Well, and do you remember it was like Odyssey?
Adventures in Odyssey.
Right, but it was based around a scientist.
Yeah.
So just like, how did they not?
Well, that's also very annoying though. Christian Science, not the religion, but the idea of science within Christianity is very aggravating. It's mind blowing.
So I ended up with so many more questions.
Yeah,
than
there's
a
lot of questions.
I think my parents needed to make me stop watching those videos.
Really?
Yeah, because they're just like, you're taking this in the wrong way.
That's really fun. I love that though, because I just like accepted things as they were presented to me. I didn't really have the scope to like critique it or scrutinize it on those levels. And I love knowing that there were kids who did, because every kid is different and every kid absorbs information differently. So, that's so interesting. Critical thinking at an early age. I'm sure that, came in handy for you later in life. If only for this conversation and that joke, because I honestly think it's a good joke or like bit to explore.
It came in handy for letting my therapist be able to afford a boathouse.
Kudos to that person who now has a boathouse.
Right.
Imagine like making a list of like all the luxuries that the people who benefit from your misfortune have. What kind of life they're living because of your neuroses.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really funny too.
Doctors and dentists have it on lock because they're just like, they don't come see me, they're gonna die.
Yeah, and the things that the bad choices you made in your life to lead to like this huge like dental procedure or whatever. Now that guy is like living like a rap star because of your
yeah. Oh,
cause and effect. That is not the right usage of that.
Well,
concept.
especially being a comedian without health insurance, going to the dentist is like a luxury.
Sure, yeah.
Like, every time I drink something that's too hot or too cold too fast and my teeth hurt, I was like, what am I doing with my life?
I know, you have to consider
Should
that.
I go back to school because I had ice cream?
Should I go back to school because I had ice cream?
Are you 100% supporting yourself off of comedy now?
Not 100%, but like getting there incrementally and probably more rapidly in the past like 6 months. It's only like very, very recently that I've realized, I'm actually making a steady income from comedy. I do other stuff like freelance. I do a lot of freelance like writing and editing, and I almost do like the odd jobs. Like millennial odd jobs are like things you do on the internet, like managing social media platforms for people. That's what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And like copywriting, and like pitching stuff for like editorial things, like my own personal, like not blogs, but like essays or whatever you call them.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. So that gives me money as well. And yeah. So, but yeah, I'm getting a lot more income from comedy in the past year. So that's been cool.
Yeah, no, and like something I like to encourage to people is like there's no shame in having a side hustle.
Oh,
in
absolutely
comedy.
not. I would encourage it, especially if it's like, I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do. So if you're in like a job that's like an office job or like a bartending thing, don't resent yourself or thinking that you're less worthy to do comedy because of that. Like you gotta make, everyone has to make ends meet. So,
Oh yeah, and so many people teach. And
Exactly, for sure.
Or write blogs, like you
if
said.
you can find, like, if you have a knack for like writing though, or acting, and you want to get an agency, if you can do some commercial auditions, like that stuff is good too, because that can be also a nice break, a side hustle that's a break from maybe your day job. That's something you like to do as well. There's no shame in like having multiple things that you like to do, you know? I think some people feel like, comedy has to be the only thing I like to do, so I can't like commit myself to other creative projects. But,
and it helps with writing too, because if you're only doing comedy, your joke writing necessarily starts to become cyclical.
For sure.
Collapsing in on itself.
Oh yeah, you need a good world. Like you need to be able to like participate in the world and like have experiences to help give you stories and jokes, you know? Yeah. You're making like the open mic rounds, or you're doing shows and you're like, my life is comedy and I don't have very many experiences outside of it. That's very limiting.
So, what kinds of things do you do now to like relate to the common people?
I'm far too common in like, well, that's the thing, is like I almost don't have that much of a life outside comedy. Like I do, the things that I do are like, I feel like are so mundane to mention. Like we're at a cafe right now and I like come here a lot. I live in a building with a lot of people who are very different from me, and I find them very funny. Like some of them are older, and some of the ones who are younger, they all seem to be very professional people who have like serious professional careers, or they jog a lot. I live in the Harbourfront, Toronto, and everyone's jogging all the time and looking beautiful and jogging, and that's all they're doing, and they have dogs, and I don't jog and I don't have a dog, and I'm just fascinated by this little bubble that I live in of people who are so active but like live a professional life, and just the things they get up to in my building. Like I live in a building where I find that everyone is like very like kind of petty sometimes about just like issues that go on within a building of people who live together. It's almost like an office space, you know, where I don't know if you've ever worked in an office, but like after a certain point, it's like you get to know everyone's weird quirks, and you're sharing this space with them for like 8 hours a day, and you're like, why are you barefoot, Justine? Like, what are you doing? And like, why does your lunch smell so bad? And then people, you know, and then people have to share a fridge, and so they're like labeling their food, but like leaving passive-aggressive notes. Things like that is like what I surround myself with when I'm not doing comedy, which sounds so bizarre and like minimal, but it makes me laugh, and I always get like, funny observations from just like everyday things like that. Sorry for anyone who's like lives in my building and is listening to this. I don't know what the chances are because they don't come to my shows and I advertise them all the time. But what one guy does. One guy comes to my shows.
We can talk about that for an hour alone. Who's the funniest person you know who isn't a comedian?
Oh man. I have a couple of people. My dad is very funny. My dad is where I get a lot of my bits from. Who else is funny? I have my best friend from my hometown is really funny in the sense that she doesn't. She's my favorite type of person, which is she's a doctor. She's what's the cancer doctor? She's an oncologist. An oncologist. So she's very she comes from an academic background and she's very smart that way. But in conversation, there's certain things she doesn't get that go over her head very easily, and sarcasm is one of them. It does not translate in her system whatsoever. With me, I feel like because she's known me her whole life, she kind of I don't know if she gets it more with me or she just now has learned to assume that I'm being sarcastic a lot of the time. So every time I say something, she's like, you're not serious, right? I'm like, no, that was actually, she makes me laugh a lot. And just kind of a little bit no filter, she'll just say things out of nowhere. That kind of person makes me laugh a lot. So,
is your relationship based on you're so different in thought process?
Yeah.
That it takes you from the side?
Yes,
a little bit?
Yeah, it catches me off guard. Yes, and I love catch me off guard humor too. Yeah. People who are not necessarily trying to be funny, because we have, with comics, we're always working on bits, and sometimes you can't tell, or you can tell if someone is saying something to see what your reaction is because they're gonna write it down in a few minutes as a bit, whereas other people are just so endearingly funny on their own without meaning to be, and I love that too.
There for sure is a bit rhythm, even when you don't know that you're testing a bit. Just having a conversation, it just naturally leads into that kind of conversation. So it's very refreshing talking to people who just find things funny or are funny without meaning to be or trying to be. Right?
Yeah.
And then don't you get into a whole thing of I'm sorry, that was a leading thing, but I find sometimes I'm then why did I choose to do this for a living and you were fine not going pro? Yeah, totally. I know a lot of people who are well, I don't know how they would do with stand-up, but I know they're just very funny people. And I'm oh, you should do something with this because it's so hilarious. But, I don't know. I guess there are just certain people who are just, maybe that's also better for the world. I think we need funny people who aren't professional at it. Just for some variety. Just for better conversations in life. They're enlightening people around. Regular people. Be funny, Take an improv class and then just go to your job every day. Oh my God. Get less heckling, for sure. You know that definitely. Mm-hmm. A man in my building is very funny. He's an older gentleman, and he just has such a colorful life and past, and I just love talking to him, and he'll just bring up stuff that's he'll ask me if I've read a certain book and then kind of describe the book in great detail, but it has no significance to anything we've been talking about, and then he'll give me the author bio and everything. And one time, and I'm gonna try and approach the subject without it sounding creepy, because I swear it wasn't creepy, so that's the preface. But so I've known him for a few years now, and he lives a few floors above me, and he's come to some of my shows. And one time, he invited me to come over to his apartment he had a bottle of vermouth that he was I think he collects, how older men love prized booze or vintage alcohol as a display scotch or whatever, and he had and I said that I had never tried vermouth before, and I was it sounds like such a fancy drink, who drinks vermouth, that's not even a word I use in my common diction. And he's no, you should come over and try some vermouth. So we were at a building party, I think it was a Christmas party or something. He's come try some. So I was yeah, you know what, he's a very funny character, he's very friendly, I'll go try some vermouth. So I went into his apartment, and it was a beautiful place, lots of artwork. He's a military man, so he had all these books on war and
and like international policy and stuff. And he had like a full library. And then he randomly, in the middle of his living room, has like a walk-in sauna. Like just a sauna, like just a walk-in shower, but it was a sauna, like just in the middle of this room. And so he's like showing it to me, and we sit down and we're drinking vermouth, and he's telling me like old stories of his life, and it was just so funny and like delightful. And I was like, no other person that I know. I don't know if I was subconsciously doing this for the fact that I would have a story to tell, but I was like, I don't know any girl my age who would just like go to an older man's house and just drink vermouth with him at like 4 o'clock on a Wednesday night. I was like, I think I'm just lacking in in outside comedy experiences, that this is what I wanted to do. It's like, yeah, I'll go drink vermouth with this 70-year-old gentleman who just lives in my building.
Wow.
And vermouth is not bad. I liked it. It was very smooth.
But you're living in an apartment complex.
Yeah, it's a condo building. Why am I giving you the address?
Yeah,
it's a condo building. But yeah, and yeah. So I've lived there for a few years now, and it's I run into him. I have conversations with him, and he's come to shows, and I was just like, this guy is very interesting and very funny.
Okay, because if it's a condo, that makes a little bit more sense. I thought it was an apartment, and a man has just built a sauna inside, and is like hiding it from the condo board.
But I don't know how that, but I think he did. I don't know how he got it in. I don't think it was just there, though. I don't know.
No, he'd have to.
Yeah, I think he did build it. I don't know.
See, and this gets into a deeper thing where it's like, I think that everybody's interesting, but not everybody knows how to tell stories.
Yeah.
So it's just like that man is probably...
He's a good storyteller. Oh, yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
But I'm always fascinated by people that are just like, but I don't want to bore you with something.
Yeah.
I found out a couple weeks ago, my best friend, like since I was in grade 5, he wrote a book that he told no one about. What? And it's... he studied brain psychology and like trauma and stuff like that. And it's a case study where it's just like, yeah, I tried to solve a murder. I can't get anyone else to look at it, but I got it published. I got approval from this girl's family. That just like, how do you not bring that up?
Yeah.
And it's always just like, I didn't want to bore you.
It just
with
didn't
the
come up. You never asked if I've written a murder book before. Yeah. Why would I just drop that info? That's so funny.
And that's someone I've known all my life, but it's just, people don't know how they're interesting they are.
What, do you know what, like, the book was about? Like, what murder it was? Was it like an unsolved case?
It is.
I feel like I should read this book. I love that stuff.
Podcast crossover.
Okay.
My Favorite Murder covered it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my god, I love My Favorite Murder.
It was a girl from Winnipeg who, she was in LA.
Yeah.
And she ended up in this place that was kind of like a rundown hotel for no reason.
Yeah.
And she ended up dead in a water tank in the hotel, like crammed in there.
Oh
and the police were saying that it was some sort of psychological thing, but she had no history of it. Yeah. I believe. This is me.
How would she... What, that was a suicide?
Well, and then as you went deeper into it, there was like links to the mob and stuff like that, but they still don't have any idea how she got in there, because she would have had to get past a locked security door.
Yeah.
Or she would have had to like crawl into a vent.
Yeah, like how do you just do that? Just like find a way to cram yourself into a water tank.
Yeah, and so I really have to read that book. But
I want to read that book now. That's crazy.
But it's just like, oh no.
Yeah, he just doesn't bring it up.
Yeah.
I love when people involve themselves in unsolved murders, because someone has to, and sometimes that, like picks up the pace. You have stuff like Serial, where all of a sudden, people are getting appeals and everything.
Exactly.
I have Google alerts for missing persons. I do. I have Google alerts in case they turn up or like something comes up about them. I have like favorite. That's like the worst word to use for a missing person. Like my favorite missing person. But like cases that have interested me significantly, I have Google alerts for them. So if they're ever found or whatever, because I don't think about them all the time. So I'm like, I want to know if this person has any updates or whatever, or someone's like doing a documentary about them.
Right.
So yeah. Oh man.
So, jumping back, is your dad like knowingly funny, or is it more like he doesn't understand that he's funny? But
no, he knows. He knows. He's very aware. I think he thinks that he should be doing comedy. But when he is funny, I think it doesn't feel forced or anything like that. And a lot of the time, it's just like. Making fun of me or making fun of each other. We're very, like, I come from, like, a very roasting relationship type of family where we're just, like, dissing each other all the time. All the time. And I think it's only recently that I've realized that other people's families are not necessarily like that. And, I don't know, we're probably, like, pretty mean to each other.
So is that your, like, comedy origin story?
Yeah, actually, I think so. Because I was, the way I was brought up was just very, my family is very loud and boisterous and not very like me in personality. Like, I'm not a very, I wouldn't call myself shy now, but I used to be, and very quiet and introverted, whereas, like, family gatherings for me are just loud and, like, everyone talking over each other, like, yelling, not angrily, just, like, trying to be the one to, you have to yell if you want to get spoken to or get your point out, you have to yell. So a lot of jokes happen that way. They loved Seinfeld, and they loved watching like Saturday Night Live and stuff like that. So
Was it a competition for like attention, or like could you win a conversation?
I could win a conversation, but I because I come from more of a writerly perspective, I would like be thinking about one good line, and that line at the perfect moment is when I would chime in. So whereas like other comics or other people are just like, you know, yelling a whole bunch of stuff to just like, some of this is going to get attention, some of this is going to be funny, I would just like silently brood to myself, be like, I'll come up with like a nice little joke, and then I'll pitch it at the right moment. So that was more my style. But I wasn't really starved for attention. I was very shy. But my dad is more like gregarious. My dad is more like openly, outwardly funny. Yeah, just cracking jokes, you know.
So are you more like picking your moment, more like a joke sniper? I'm
very cerebral. I think I still am, because I'm just like I'm like, no, the wording has to be good.
Right.
Where other people are just like, the energy is there. Like, they're just funny because they're just like, you know, very forthright, very energetic.
That's so interesting to me. Okay, kind of. This is a segue, trust me. When trying to research you a little bit, you did Second City as well.
Yeah, I did, yes. And
like, I've only ever known you as a stand-up.
Right. But I didn't do improv, though.
You did the writing
program. I did the writing program, yes. Yeah.
So how was converting some of that to sketch?
That was an interesting experience, because Second City is a very, like, its own distinctive, curated comedy experience where, like, if you're learning to write there, you're learning to write sketch for their main stage. You're not learning to write it for a video series or, like, or even Saturday Night Live. Like, you're learning to, like, this is what a sketch should look like if we were to put it in a main stage review. So that's that's more of, like, a theater-type sketch. Yeah. So that was a very specific style of sketch writing, which was very interesting to me, but I'm not, like, specifically proud of anything I produced during that time period. Like, I'm glad that I did it, but I don't think I came up with, like, my funniest moments or sketches during that time. I feel like I could go back and do it again and maybe have a better perspective on it, a better handle of it, but at the time I was like, oh, I'll just follow their formula. Because they do have a formula. Yeah. Yeah,
very much so. Yeah. And I think a lot of people get disillusioned by that in a weird way when they go, but it's kind of like, well, they're the Catholic Church of comedy. Like, they started it.
Yeah.
So they don't need to branch out because when you
Yeah.
go to them, you're looking for that.
Yes, you're going to them for them. They're not really, they don't need to like lure people in with like all kinds of like fancy different things. They're just like, this is where they're an institution. Like we're Second City, and when you come here, you come for Second City comedy. So it was really cool. Like I enjoy branching out and learning to produce comedy in different ways, because I just think it's important to like be multi-level that way, just be able to like put your hand in different, pots or whatever.
Did your style or a voice really change when you wrote for sketch?
Yeah, I guess so, but I don't know if it was I even had a voice comedically yet, because this was like in 2011 and 2012.
Okay.
I was doing stand-up, but not as like consistently as I am now, and I was sort of doing it sporadically. I don't think I had developed a voice or knew what I wanted to say yet. I just knew I wanted to tell jokes. I had a sketch that was called, I had a sketch that was about a girl going to the dentist, and I was paralleling abortion as going to the dentist, and if you had to get a tooth removed, the dentist was talking about it as if it was getting an abortion, and like shaming the girl for not wanting to have her tooth removed, or for wanting to have the tooth removed and not keep it when he was saying to keep it.
Funny.
It was very funny to me in concept, but in execution, it was just it was a little bit clumsy. But it was so cool to be able to write it, and then they get you to have they get Second City actors to come in and like read your script, and they do it for you. It was a really cool experience. It was very fun. I feel like I would have written it better now than I did then, though. But yeah.
And that's a good feeling. Like
yeah,
you always
totally.
Be like, I can do better now.
Yeah. And I think that probably is a little bit of my voice of like, I like issues that are like, I like what do you call that type of like the metaphor type comedy where it's like, or like satire. Like this is satire in sketch. Like this is what it is about, but this is what it's really about. Yeah. I think I tend to gravitate towards that type of style. So
when you were starting out, did you know you wanted to be a stand-up, and then you just kind of like, I want to try sketch? Or did you start off as sketch and then go like, no, I think I actually love this? Or...
Well, I was looking for something new because I was living in Waterloo at the time, which is my hometown. I had just come from living in Windsor for 7 years, and I had moved back to Waterloo for a summer, and I was just like... contemplating what my next life move was, and I think I was like, you know what, I feel a pull towards Toronto, and I think I should do something with comedy. I had tried stand-up several times. I was like, I think I could do stand-up there. I don't know that they had that stand-up class that they now have at Second City back when I was researching. If they did, I didn't see it, or maybe they weren't running it for the time that I was going to move there.
I think it is newer.
I think it's newer, and so when I was looking up, I knew I didn't want to do improv, just because that seemed really scary to me. So I figured, comedy writing might help push me forward, at least in terms of just like getting stuff on paper and like finding out how I can be funny in a writing sense. So then I moved to Toronto and immediately did that, and I was still doing some shows in between, and I think I always did want to do stand-up though. I still want to write sketch, like I want to do like video type sketches, and I could see myself writing for TV. But yeah, I think I just wanted something to like propel me forward and give me the shove that I needed to like do comedy in any
Totally. And it's like any type of school where you're going to network with other people who are interested in the same thing as
Exactly.
you.
Yeah, exactly. You're meeting people from all kinds of walks of life, and some of them are doing stand-up, some of them are not. Some of them have, like, experience in other territories of comedy, so that's always cool. Yeah, I want to meet friends, too.
What was it that drew you to Toronto in particular?
Well, I was very resistant to Toronto for the longest time. Like, Waterloo is about an hour west, so I wasn't like I was
far enough away.
Yeah, well, that's why I went to Windsor, which is, like, for anyone who knows Windsor, that's sort of a strange choice to choose to go there when I was 18. But to me, like, that was the school that I got accepted in, and I was like, oh, well, that's the furthest away that I have the opportunity to go to for now, so I just went. But Toronto, for some reason, I never wanted to go there growing up. I don't know why. I had been there enough times, but I was like, it doesn't really seem that appealing to me. But then I started dating someone that summer when I was in Waterloo. For a summer, I started dating someone who lived in Toronto. So there were a lot of back and forth visits, and that's when I was like first really like, oh, I actually like this city. And I could see myself like, it seems like the only like city within this area that was like good for comedy, like in terms of like an actual scene.
For sure.
So yeah.
Well, was there something about the comedy scene here that made you gravitate here as opposed to Vancouver?
I think I probably knew more about Toronto in terms of the comedy scene.
Yeah.
It just seemed like that was the place to go. I think I just knew less about Vancouver or Montreal than I did about Toronto. So, yeah.
No, fair enough. I also like the idea that it's very common that, like, you have to move as far away from your parents as possible at a certain age.
Yeah.
Or else you, like, I constantly wonder about, like, what if your parents are really cool? How do you rebel against them then?
Yeah.
Like, what did David Bowie's kids do?
Yeah. Why would you want to move so far away from David Bowie?
Really?
That's really funny. Well, it wasn't even like my parents were like not cool. I think I was just, I don't know. You just feel like that's what you should do.
Yeah,
if you haven't had any life experience. Yeah.
From the learning to write at Second City, like you've now got this animated show in the works.
Right.
Which, first of all, how much can you talk about that? Do you have like
a little bit. I can talk a little bit about it. Yeah, it's still very much like in development, but it's like I'm openly able to. Do
you want to give us the elevator pitch?
Sure. Oh man. Okay, so it's like called Diversity League. I don't know if that will remain the name of it, but it's a superhero universe in which there's a superhero crime-fighting team of individuals that all have their own powers, but the main crime in this world, this otherwise like utopian world, is that social justice still exists. Like social justice issues still exist, like racism, ableism, sexism, that type of stuff. And so we see this crime-fighting superhero team facing every episode a different obstacle that the world needs saving from. Like, for example, a troll, like an internet troll, is a whole episode, and it's represented by like an actual troll who's like taking over the world. But instead of like, he's like this big crazy monster, but he's like, you're fat. Like, he's just like calling people, like doing what a troll would do, like that type of thing. So we take real concepts and sort of turn them into superhero versions or super villain versions of what they would be within that universe. And then we've got like superheroes representing different minority statuses, and that's their voice that's able to fight the crime. So like my character, who is I don't know if we've decided on a name for her. Right now it's Mabel Steele, but she's like this. She's an amputee, and her superhero power is she's got telekinesis, where what she's lacking in limbs, she's able to move things with her mind. Right. Yeah, but only they live in a mansion where it's like everything is like cool and perfect and accessible within the mansion. But when she goes out into the real world, it's just the regular Earth world where nothing is accessible for her. So that's her daily struggle, is like combating ableism within that.
How strong is the irony in it? Would you say that the heroes are necessarily trying too hard, or they're genuinely squashing the evil of these problems?
I mean, they're squashing them, but it's like not without like a little bit of back and forth dialogue of like, we want to include include the complexities of like these everyday, like I think the main premise is like everything you see on Facebook, on the internet, of like people arguing about huge issues, like misogyny and racism and stuff. We kind of want to include all of that and be like, these are very complex issues, and there's a side of it that's not understanding the oppressed, and we want to kind of explore that and see where that comes from. Like we have like a villain is the cat caller, and he's like he has an actual cat collar on around his neck that like hypnotizes and like it like makes women smile without their consent, and so like this cat collar like mesmerizes them and they're all smiling and we're like, oh no, the cat collar is taking over, and so you realize that this guy is just like this pimple-faced boy who like lives in his parents' basement and like has been starved for attention. And it's like we're not trying to glamorize his origin story as like an excuse for what he does, but just kind of give a backstory so that people are like, oh, maybe I've been that way, and maybe that's not the right response is to try and take that out on objectifying women, that type of thing.
Right, don't take all the humanity
yes,
away from them.
Exactly. So yeah, it's been really fun to write. It's been really fun. So we pitched that to CBC and they gave us a green light for that. So now we're looking to find like all the fine print details of like animators and producers and such. So
is it a web series or is it a full? Because I would watch this as a full.
Yeah,
series.
we want it. That's the goal, is to have it as a full series. We do have scripts for like we've got like a full like 30-minute script. We've got an 11-minute script of like a web stuff. So right now we're gonna get CBC to fund the digital web series for now, and then hopefully once we have a run of that, take off from there.
Was there some topics that you shied away from or too on the nose? Because I'm thinking like if you pitched this before Charlottesville, it's like, well, Nazis are still a thing we didn't expect to deal with, but that's kind of an open shut.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, like, it's almost like the world just keeps giving us topics to talk about. But I don't know, like we have an episode list, and so far it's been experiences within our, like, it's very important to have a show called Diversity League with a diverse group of writers. So we have people, of different backgrounds and stuff. So we're all kind of touching on our own experiences with those stories. But yeah, there might be, I feel like there's probably going to be a challenge to have some, storylines that might be a little bit sensitive. But for now, we've just kind of got a nice solid list of episodes that I think are like touch on important issues, but don't overreach or anything.
Still on that, sidestepping it a little bit, your character's an amputee.
Yes.
And you were saying also that I saw something on your Facebook feed that made me really happy. That was, since you won JFL, apparently comedy clubs have been phoning you, asking how they can make their comedy clubs more accessible.
More accessible, yeah. So I produced a show that was in tribute to a comedian who has passed a few years ago, or last year, Andre Arruda, and he was a comedian with a disability, and he and I were friends, and we had talked about, like, what if we made a show that showcased some comics with disabilities in a space that was accessible for everyone to come to. Because, like, in every major city, there's, like, a jarring lack of accessibility in just, like, restaurants and bars, like people who, even the ones that claim to be accessible for wheelchairs, they're like, yeah, come on in, we've got like a ramp, drink all you want. Oh, by the way, our washrooms are down these rickety stairs in the basement, so you can drink all you want, but you can't go pee, which is like crazy. And so, since his passing, I wanted to continue that project because I thought it was important. So I did produce this show last month at Second City. Shout out to Second City's John Candy Box Theater, because it's, from what I know, the most accessible space right now in the city. There's an elevator to get upstairs, and then the space is very large, and you're able to get around. And so we had a show there, and we had live captioning services for deaf and hearing impaired guests, and we had a few comics with disabilities on the show. There are not that many that I know of, but the good thing is, since then I had other venues reach out to me and be like, what do we do to make people want to come to our show and feel included? So that was great. And also comics with disabilities have messaged me as well, being like, hey, I saw you at this show and I didn't know that you could do this. Like, I didn't know that this was a platform I could use to make jokes, and I'd love to get into it. So that's been really cool as well.
Well, is there anything like quick, easy fixes that comedy clubs can do?
Yeah, so I mean, in terms of accessibility, it can be a little bit complex because there's such a wide range of disabilities. However, for people in wheelchairs, like there is this organization called Stopgap, and they custom make ramps that can literally just go outside your storefront and go into your store. Like you can, and they will install it for you. And I don't know. I think like the very affordable prices. I think it kind of depends on like your setup. But they will do ramps that like I feel like on the website it says something about they can make ramps that don't like conflict with your buildings like structural bylaws. Like there's sometimes like paperwork that has to be done for like add-ons and stuff within your venue, but I think they have like some kind of not loophole but like agreement with the city that they're allowed to build these ramps for you, so you can just contact them and ask for a ramp and they'll come and like work something out for you. So that's the quickest fix that I can think of off the top of my head for people who want to have accessibility. Yeah. There are places that are more underground, like the stairs leading downstairs. I don't know how that would work, but
it's dangerous anyway.
It's so dangerous anyways. Yeah, totally.
You're selling booze, and then you're just like, well,
good luck.
Go down into the murder basement.
Yeah, I know it's nuts, but yeah, I know. Like, there's a lot of like venues that they're not like maliciously being like we're saying no to these types of people. They just happen to have bought that venue, but if you are interested, I would check out Stopgap because they have a lot of good resources for ramps. So yeah.
And jumping back a bit with the whole concept of social justice warriors,
right?
How are you feeling about the supposed PC movement in comedy lately?
I don't know. I feel like it's hard for me to believe that even if you wanted to say the most heinous thing you can think of, that you wouldn't be able to find a space for it if you actually even wanted to. Not that that's something I would necessarily agree with, but I feel like there's a lot of outrage over, like, we're not allowed to say this. I'm like, where are you really not allowed? Because I've been on some stages where people have said egregious things, and, like, no one batted an eye, and they almost got standing ovations sometimes. And they were not things that I particularly agreed with, but they were allowed to say them while they were there. But I mean, I don't know, the PC thing is interesting because I don't think we need to be intimidated by social progress, and I don't think we need to be intimidated by voices that weren't given a voice before. I think that's a natural uprising and something we should celebrate. And
it's way more interesting.
It's way more interesting, and it adds more variety.
Diversity of topics.
Yeah, and I think that comedy is always evolving, and I think it's important to take a look. You don't have to change your style or voice to accommodate people, but like if you're saying something that's largely being criticized by a bunch of people for one reason, I don't think it's unfair of you to have to be like, you know what, maybe I should just consider that and be like, where is this coming from? Because I'm a performer and I want to entertain an audience, and if the audience is giving me backlash, maybe I have something to think about. Maybe I'm coming from a perspective that is a little bit outdated right now.
I mean, I always try and keep it as a rule of thumb. It's just like, am I punching up?
Yeah.
Like, don't make fun of the victim in the joke.
Yeah.
And just try and keep empathy in everything you do.
Right.
I've also seen it, though, where people got criticized just for telling something that really happened to them. Like
for sure.
I saw a buddy of mine talk about something very specific in his childhood, and someone came up to him afterwards and was like, hey man, it's not cool for you to talk about that. You don't know who's in the audience. It's just like, but that was my
that was my experience. Yeah, totally. I do think there are two extremes, and I don't know if this is something that like a lot of people would agree with me on within my like network of friends, but I do think in social progress, we have sort of reached a point where some people are going to shows looking for something to critique very specifically, and I think anytime you're looking for something, you're going to find it. And it's really hard to argue with someone who's just speaking from their experience and being like, well, you can't. Well, you never know who's in the audience. There's any number of things that you could be saying that, you're making jokes about and someone isn't liking. So I don't think that we should have to be that in our heads all the time of being like, okay, is anybody in the audience coming from this perspective? Or that would drive you insane if you're just nitpicking all your jokes and being like, what can I talk about then? I understand and empathize with that as well. In terms of punching up, I think that's always a good idea, though.
As a comedian and also cerebral writer, I'm trying to think of the French word for it because I'm pretentious, but it's what the French call the moment of the staircase, where somebody said something to you and you only think of the perfect comeback 10 minutes later when you're walking home.
Yeah.
Have you ever had one that's just been burning in your soul for years that you would just...
Oh, man.
Some sort of moment in your life that if you had biblical time travel powers, you could go back
and say the thing? I feel like I have those a lot. And I feel like they're not even what's the time gap in the moment of the staircase example? How far in general do most people, after the fact think of those things? Because for me, I feel like it's, a shockingly short amount of time that's what's annoying. It's 3 minutes later or less. And I'm like, oh, I should have said this thing. And I thought about it, directly after. I don't know if I can think of a specific example. I don't know. A lot of the time when that happens, it's not even within comedy context. It's just out on the street. Lately, I'm struggling with being out in public, and two things will happen. I'll just be living my life and minding my own business and doing things, and a stranger will come up to me and offer me help in a situation where I don't even look like I need help. I'm just standing there, and they're like, let me help you find your bus pass. I'm in your purse. I'm like, oh no, it's okay. And they're overkilling, trying to help me, which I'm like, okay, well, their intentions were good. They were just trying to be a good citizen. But then the opposite extreme will happen, where this just happened last night, where I sort of tripped on the street and everything in my purse went spilling all over the sidewalk. And this guy watched the whole thing and didn't flinch whatsoever. And I was like, how does that happen? This is the most obvious scenario of literally anyone needing help, and he's just observing it like it's a movie. And I always want to be I always want to have some comeback and be to just stand up and be oh, I'm fine, everyone. Thanks for stopping. Thanks for, being really sarcastic. And I never think to do that in the moment. And I've had so many of those moments lately where I just come up with comebacks of yelling at strangers for not helping me, different clever quips of it, but I never think to do it until they're gone. They've gotten on the bus already.
Is there a rule of thumb you would like to announce for helping someone?
Yeah, I mean, there must be something. I mean, I feel like it's crazy that there has to be a rule of thumb, because that instance seemed so obvious to me. If I saw an able-bodied person spill the contents of their bag out on the sidewalk, I would go over and be like, hey man, are you okay? Do you need help? And yet I wouldn't go up to a blind person as they're just living their life and be like, hey, do you want me to guide you into this Starbucks? That's crazy. I don't know, if you ever see me and things are flying out of my purse, feel free to come over and help me, because I probably need it. And if I'm in the middle of a busy intersection, that's appropriate. You could be a good person and do that. If I'm just standing at a streetcar stop, at stationary, not even moving, that's probably not a good time to come and ask me if I need help, or what happened to my hands and if I'm ever gonna grow them back. That happens a lot too. It's amazing. If I'm ever gonna grow my limbs back, and I'm 33, and when would that happen? My question.
What would...
That's not how evolution works.
Okay, alright.
Imagine Yeah, I'm expecting them tomorrow, like around noon. They
Yeah.
should probably be fully developed by then. Like this, you should have seen me yesterday. Like I only had shoulders. I'm lucky to have what I have now today.
Wow.
So crazy.
Is there something you've never been asked that you wish someone would ask you about? I mean, I was going to ask you about something that, like, you're obsessed with that doesn't necessarily have something to do with comedy. And I know we touched on religion. But if
I
you've got
am
another
pretty
hot one-
fixated. I really get, like, I got genuinely hyped up when you mentioned the Donut Man. Like, that really excites me. And I don't even know why, because it's not even part of my life anymore. I think I just love that connection to someone who has experience with, like, what I find to be a very, very narrow scope of an experience that a lot of people don't relate to. What else? I really enjoy ghosts and paranormal activity and things of that nature, and I binge watch stuff like Paranormal Survivor on Netflix, and I love that stuff. And I actually wish people would ask me more about that. Not that they would think to, because I don't know why you would think to, but I love that kind of thing.
See, and again, I don't want to jump in on your podcast,
No, please
but, like,
do.
so much, like, that's how I bond with my mom.
Is it?
She'll just be like, so... And she won't call them conspiracy theories, but
Oh, I
she'll
love
just jump in
conspiracy
on, like, I remember once she sent me, like, a link to a podcast that Jesse Ventura did all about the JFK assassination. And
Okay.
it's just like,
Oh, man.
and it's this really sweet, endearing thing of, like, I learned more about my mom through this interest,
Yeah,
but
through
it's this
interest.
weird, and my old roommates used to actually, well, one specifically, would try and hunt Bigfoot.
Wow.
Right?
Really? For real? Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
anytime you want to get
Yeah,
into this
totally.
stuff.
I love conspiracy theories. I just want them to be. I want one to be true. I just want something to be true. I want like
One of them has to.
one of them has to be true.
Like, everything
Everything can't be just out of just nothing.
100%
Yeah.
running smooth 100%
Yeah,
of
there's
the
gotta
time.
be some like stuff wheels moving behind the scenes. You know?
Like, I don't feel like right now in political and global history, I'm like, no, we know everything that's going on. No one
has ever tried to stage anything. Come on.
Yeah.
I want, you know what I really want to happen is I want a celebrity that we think has been dead for years and years to resurface and been like, I staged my own death. I would love for that to happen. I just think that's such a cool idea to do.
Do you have one in particular that
Who
you're
I think
kind of
might
like,
be?
yeah.
Maybe Tupac.
Right?
Tupac.
That's the one I
think
lean
Tupac
to
could-
the most.
Yeah, out of all the ones, I'm like, no, Elvis is not still kicking around, I don't think. I think Tupac would be, I think that would have made the most sense based on his life. I would at least understand that staging more
Where
than
he was
anyone
headed
else.
as an artist
Yes.
at the same
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, and then because there's all those conspiracies of like the still making music beyond the grave, like all these tracks are coming out, and he's like referencing
Lyrics
things,
in
lyrics,
Machiavelli,
yeah, that kind of thing. I would love for that to be true. I just want someone to do it, even just to fuck with people, even for no reason.
Andy Kaufman,
Yeah.
how there's still, like, because I don't know if you know about this, but he left a step of instructions to his brother.
Oh,
And,
really?
like, recently there was the anniversary of one of the instructions, and he had to pick up a suitcase in a car park that
Oh,
actually
my
was
gosh.
there, and you're just like, but he's also was a crazy enough person that, like, he might have just staged this all
Yeah.
decades in advance.
Yeah, totally. Oh man, so crazy. I also love Illuminati shit. And going
Right.
down rabbit holes of Illuminati stuff. Love it. I love that.
Well, that's
Secret
another one,
societies.
too, where it's just like, no, if you see all the conglomerated corporations, you're just like, no, I can believe that there's like 10 people controlling most of the wealth.
Yeah.
That's feasible now.
Yeah, totally. I get sucked in. There's people who commit to like making YouTube channels about that stuff, and I'm like, and some of it is just like so off the wall, but they're so committed to it. They're like, don't you see the number 3 in Beyonce's like pendant that she's like? Oh man, that's next level.
Oh, and like all the symbols that are still on the money. And,
yeah. All that stuff.
I could talk about this for hours. Yeah, but I don't want to infringe on your own podcast. No. We'll have to pick this up in a separate... We'll have to pick it up,
yeah.
It'll be a crossover podcast,
for sure.
like Flintstones Meet the Jetsons.
That's right, yeah, a little spin-off.
But I feel like I have to tie one thing up.
Yeah.
Which is even weird to say as a sentence. Are you and God good?
Oh, that's such a great question, actually.
Yeah,
I think that's the question that no one has actually asked me specifically. Are you and God good? And that's loaded because, in short, yes, but I don't really believe in that the way I used to. And I think that, I think me and God are good. I don't think that God is like who I thought it was. I don't believe in that, I don't think. But there was a time when I kind of like went away from Christianity that I was like, oh, I'm in trouble, like with God. Like there would probably have been a time where like if someone had asked me, are you and God good? Like, I don't know. I think I might be going in the wrong direction. Maybe he's mad at me. But I don't think in those terms anymore.
So did it go from like old men with a beard?
Yeah, to something to more hippie like universe type shit. Like everyone is God. There is no God / everyone is God.
Right.
/ I just believe in like a universal force that's not a God, or I don't believe in any kind of like blueprint plans of people's lives or anything. I think you just create your own meaning and attach it to things and focus on that, and that becomes your life. I don't think anyone's like drawing your life and like you're just helplessly following it.
ShowbizMonkeys.com